Liveries are a huge part of F1, as they're one of the only things a team can do that can truly show their culture and expression as a team. Last video, I went over the best liveries from the teams in the sport currently, but through the comments, you guys helped me remember some of the best liveries from teams that no longer are in the sport, and just because they're no longer around, shouldn't mean that we get rid of their legacy left behind in these designs. So today, I'm going to do just that. Teams like Jordan, Benetton, Lotus, and plenty more are historic names in the sport and have iconic looks that every fan can recognize. But there are also smaller teams like Caterham and Arrows, which didn't have as dominant of a reign, but still have incredible liveries. For that reason, I'm going to bring to attention the best liveries that we will never see in F1 ever again. This is going to be a little bit different than last time. If you haven't seen the last video, check it out, and the format I followed there was to pick two liveries for each current team, a normal and a one-off. But that doesn't work as well here for two reasons. There's been 172 constructors to compete in F1, and that's just too many to go through. And one-offs are something that are more popularized nowadays, as some of these older teams don't have any to choose from, and if they do, it's only usually one. This doesn't mean I'm going to leave out the one-offs, it just means that I'm going to group them in with the rest of the bunch. So, what I'm going to do is the following. Through both comments on the last video, as well as some personal favorites of both me and the rest of the internet, I've compiled 20 different liveries that are top tier, both iconic and niche. I'm going to go through each of them and say what's good and bad about them, and after, I'm going to make a top 10 list at the end of the video. I do want to make a few things clear though. I selected all these liveries because they're widely known for being good. So by not including them in the top 10 list, I'm not inherently saying they're bad. I just have to narrow it down. Also, there are so many good liveries that narrowing it down to even 20 is tough, and I'm sure to have missed some that quite a few people like. For every livery that's ever existed, there's gotta be at least someone out there who loves it, and if you think I missed one, leave a comment on which one it is, and I'll do my best to respond to you on how I would rank it. First up comes a fan favorite, the Jordan 191, which was pulled from the comments of my last video. A car made not only iconic by its design, but also being the car that the great Michael Schumacher made his debut in. The distinct green and blue work well with the shape of the car, and particularly, the parts that catch my eye really well are the curved front wing and the side pod, which add a lot of depth to a livery that's mostly just solid colors. The sponsors like 7-Up and Tic Tac work extremely well because of the base green color, and the multi-level green wing on a car reminds me of Wingo from Cars movie, yet it works surprisingly well. Also a little touch, the helmet's designs go really well with the car, and this one's a no-brainer as it's one of the most loved cars in F1 history, so I have to agree that it's a great. Now no shock to anyone, but there's immediately another Jordan car, and that's the 1998 Jordan 198, also known as the Buzzin' Hornet. If there's one thing I can promise you is that Jordan knows how to design a livery, and holy is this one good. The yellow and black design is hugely different from the other Jordan livery, but they show that they can go crazy with any color scheme. I really like the touch of the Hornet itself on the nose of the car, and it adds a little element of fun to it, and the accents of red really tie it all together. This is the type of car I want to shrink and just put on my desk to look at from time to time. I also really like how it says Buzzin' Hornets on the side of the car, because I really do love when a team does this, and it almost looks like a subtitle for the car. Specific shout out to the McLaren Formula E car for adding their subtitle too. The 1986 Benetton B186 is possibly one of the sleekest and most colorful cars we'll ever see in F1. The green in the front and the entire engine cover of the car being paint strokes is such a design that we would never see this much attention to detail on a modern car. Benetton also made another step with this machine by attempting to color the outside of the tires. The more I look at them, the more I struggle to truly decide whether I like the color tires or not, but I can say one thing, that it's definitely innovative. Anyways, this is a car that reminds me a lot of how people describe a mullet, business in the front and party at the back. Braun GP may have only been on the grid for one season, but just like their championship result, their livery was a home run. The white and black with a minimal hint of fluoro yellow makes for a really good looking car, and the wheel covers bring in more of that vibrancy. Another detail I do want to bring to attention though is how they have very few sponsors and make it work. We commonly talk about cars having too many sponsors nowadays and liveries being crowded, but I think we overlook how hard it is to make a car look good without sponsors. I've seen some images of some modern F1 cars with no sponsors, and they're cursed, so props to Braun for pulling that off. Leyton House is probably a name you aren't too familiar with in the world of F1, and I wouldn't blame you, because per their results, they were pretty awful. They're most known for being the team that had the first ever car designed by Adrian Newey, and for his first car, although reliability issues were at the forefront, it looked stunning. Throughout their years of running, they had both this solid powder blue and the blue and green design, and they both look incredible. The Leyton House branding going up the nose is great, and all the sponsors stick to the same color scheme, and it really ties together well. Anyways, just a beautiful car that I feel doesn't get enough attention. In 2007, Honda made an Earth livery to focus on their environmental desires. It had no sponsoring other than the Honda logo and Bridgestone tires, and the rear wing had an address to an environmental awareness site. Their motives paid off as they actually received an environmental award, and they gained a lot of financial support from brands despite not even putting them on the car. But although the design has good motives, I'm here to judge how it looks. The design is a globe onto the car, and the black represents space at the back, and it sounds like a really cool concept, but I just don't know how much I like looking at it. Through images, it's really hard to tell that it's the Earth at the first glance, and it doesn't fit best with the car shape. I think if this sort of thing were to be done on modern cars, it would go a lot better given the shape of them, but unfortunately, here, expectations beat reality. The 2014 Force India car is another I'm taking from the comments of the last video. The color scheme of white, black, orange, and green doesn't sound incredible on paper, but it works really well on this car. There are actually two renditions of it, with the orange side pods and the black side pods. I personally think the black side pods is better and has a much more sleek and refined look to it. I will say it's hard to take some of these cars from this era seriously because of the donger on the front of the car, and in comparison with some of the other liveries, it's up against some stiff competition, and I can't see it sticking it through to the finish. Alright, I'll stop. It's been made very clear by both comments and the internet that Lotus is one of the most beloved teams of all time in terms of their livery, and I won't disagree. The iconic John Player Special Lotus is one of the best, and it goes for a completely different goal than other liveries, yet it does it so well. The type of vibes I get from most liveries that I think are good are the way that they stand out and are different from the rest. Yet Lotus goes for a much more sleek and minimal design and smashes it out of the park. The black and gold is so good when done right, and there's no denying this is one of the best liveries to ever exist. Not much else to say. Now, the Lotus love doesn't end there, as we had the Lotus E20. On Lotus's reboot, they went back to the black and gold design, and it did not disappoint, and the touches of red from the Total sponsorship are great. I will say, compared to the past Lotus, it looks a lot different on track compared to when it's in good lighting, and in general, there's not too much more to say about it that I didn't mention 20 seconds ago with the other Lotus, so I'll just leave it at that. To me, the Jaguar R1 is a design that has a lot of potential, but unfortunately just comes out a bit short. You can probably tell I like green cars, but this one just looks too much like a toy car to truly have that same pull that the others do. This is the type of thing I would expect to see digging through one of those blue cardboard bins of Hot Wheels at a store. There are some good parts, especially being the actual Jaguar on the engine cover, but the HSBC red sponsoring really isn't doing it too many favors. I think if the color scheme worked well with just the green and white, it would be a lot better, but it's not my favorite, so I'm gonna have to dock the elf shoe car at some points. The 2011 HRT was responsible for being the debut car for everyone's favorite Aussie, Daniel Ricciardo, and it was one of the worst cars in F1 history, but at least it looked good while finishing 2 to 3 business days behind the rest of the pack. The white and bright orangey red made a real standout car, and the checkered flag design all over the car makes for a really good look. My favorite parts have to be the nose having this streamlined design, and the text on the side saying, "This could be you." It's no surprise that I like the text on the car based on what I said earlier about the Buzz and Hornets, but this car is great and overlooked because it was really slow. The RAM team is probably not one that comes to many people's minds, as in their total of 6 seasons in the sport, they only had 22 race finishes, but they went through all of these DNQ and retirements in styles with the RAM 03. The green and white design with the lime green stripe is one of the best to exist in my opinion, and one that I didn't even know existed before this. But golly, am I glad that it's in my knowledge now. Even with the red sponsoring, it makes it look good, and it reminds me of those Castrol Toyota Rally liveries. Anyways, another that's completely overshadowed by just being terrible performance-wise, but one of the greats in my mind. Yet another green car makes its way here from another comment on the last video, and that's the Caterham from 2012. In the last video, I mentioned how Aston Martin nowadays with the yellow reminds me of John Deere, and this car does it even more. The yellow stripe on the nose and the wheels, having the yellow rims around them, makes it eerily similar to tractors you would see in the Midwest, and to be fair, it's not too far off considering they might have the same lap times. I honestly think if I didn't associate this livery with John Deere, I would really like it, but it's just ingrained in my mind and I can't get it out. In 1999, BAR had their first year of F1 after purchasing Tyrrell, and they wanted to create a new identity on the grid, understandably so. In order to achieve this, they wanted to run two cars with two entirely different liveries, a red and white one and a blue and yellow one, but as you can expect, this wasn't allowed. Because the FIA didn't allow this, they couldn't decide on which one they wanted, so they just put them into one and created the conjoined twins of F1 cars. It's definitely different from anything else we've ever seen, but the first thing I would say to describe it would definitely not be good. The fact that people like this car isn't crazy to me considering how out there it is, but it's just not for me. The Ligier JS11 was the challenger for the 1980 season, and it was quite the beautiful livery. The classic red, white, and blue color scheme that you can't go wrong with, paired with a cigarette sponsor, there's no way this can't be good. Fun fact actually, this car was used in an animated Transformers series as the Transformer Mirage, which although I might not be the target audience for, I just think that's really cool. It's definitely good looking because in my opinion, these cars look a bit bulbous at the front, but they somehow make it work, and that's pretty commendable in my eyes. Also, these cars look so low nowadays. That doesn't matter at all in context, I just kind of felt like saying it. MasterCard Lola might be one of the funniest things to go down in F1 history, at least from my perspective. I wouldn't be too happy if I was running them. They intended to join F1 in 1997 and released their color block car and went into the opener and failed to qualify, meaning they didn't race, and by the next race week, they'd withdrawn from the championship for financial reasons. Either way, the car they released did look pretty nice, and I think it would have been a lot better if they blew up this Pennzoil sticker on the side, but I don't really know, because who knows if they even had the money for a bigger piece of vinyl. Arrows weren't exactly known for being a great team performance-wise in F1, but they stuck around long enough to make some killer liveries, and my personal favorite has to be the 1997 Challenger, the A18. Another blue and white car with hints of red, it's both simple and elegant at the same time, and it fits the car shape really well. All the sponsors match the color, and it's overall just a very solid livery. For some reason, this livery reminds me of how a Sensodyne toothpaste tube looks, but not in a bad way. If I were to some reason buy toothpaste for how it looked, I would pick this car off the shelf. In 1991, Minardi went for a very simple yet great livery with this black, yellow, and white striped car. It's incredibly simple yet incredibly good at the same time. My favorite touches are the yellow on the front wing and the number, adding some contrast, and it's just clean. This is the type of livery that for once works a lot better on these older cars than the new ones, and I can just look at it and appreciate it. The Benetton B194 was known for being driven by everyone's favorite F1 driver, Jos Verstappen. Oh, and that Michael Schumacher guy too. Shock, this is another blue and green car, but it goes for more of a colorful design using different shades of blue and green, but I don't exactly love it. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely a great car in terms of how it performs and how iconic it is, but it's just not really what floats my boat. Now for the final livery of the day, and yet another Jordan car, specifically the one from 1995. Here's my hot take of the day, and spoilers for the upcoming top 10 list, but this is my favorite Jordan livery of all time. The color block design is great, and yet somehow looks organized for a car that has 5 different main colors. The sponsors are good, and all the colors mean any helmet can match it regardless of what it was, red, blue, or pink with polka dots. Just a solid car, and by the team that has probably made the best cars over the year as a whole. Alright, now time for the top 10 list, and I've already given descriptions for all these cars, so I'm not going to waste your time, and I'll just quick fire them off. But first, let me know in the comments which one of these 20 makes your number 1 spot. 10 is the 1980 Ligier, simple but done right. At 9 comes the Arrows A18, similar to the last, but the toothpaste tube took my liking. For 8, we have the 1991 Minardi, a yellow and black car that has done better than any Renault trying the same thing. 7, the Buzz and Hornets Jordan, not much to say. 6, one of the other Jordans and probably the crowd favorite. At 5 is the Benetton B186, chaotic, but in a good way. 4, the 1995 Jordan, the best of the 3 to me. 3, the 1991 Leyton House car, heavily underappreciated. For 2, the John Player Special Lotus, truly one of a kind. And for the final spot, the RAM03, making it the best F1 livery that we'll never see again, or at least in my opinion.